Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. It is week 7 of the Three Rivers Pantry Challenge. How are you doing? I'm doing pretty good. It has been interesting. We have one full week and a couple of days left to go, and I think I'm going to end it on a high note. So tonight I think I'm going to do a casserole so I can just pop it in the oven. I have some onions, some rice, some broth. I have some cream of chicken soup, some diced tomatoes, my usual spices. I pulled some broccoli out of the freezer that I'm going to use up. And then, of course, my protein is chicken tonight. Surprise, surprise. And then I just have my regular 9x15 pan. So I'm going to mix this right in my pan so I don't have another dish to wash. And I can do it like that. Why not? So in goes my cream of chicken soup. And I'm going to add the liquid of my chicken as well as my broth in here to get the liquid that I need for this dish. And I've seen a lot of people in various videos draining their protein, draining the chicken, and throwing that water, that broth away. It's actually broth because the chicken is cooked in there, and adding water to the dish. Why wouldn't you just use the water off of the chicken that it comes in, and that added extra flavor, nutrients that are in the water? And of course I rinse out my jar even though it had broth in it. Still some seasonings and stuff is at the bottom, and I want to get all that goodness into my dish. But anyway, just rinse out your thing. Don't throw away that broth. Add in your spices. This is so quick and easy. It comes together. You can do whatever veggies you like. You can do pasta instead of rice. Tonight to the casserole, I made in diced tomatoes. Sometimes I use corn. Sometimes I use carrots. It all depends. I have a lot of tomato products I want to use up, so I'm trying to use them strategically throughout this challenge. I have some of this pasta sauce in the fridge left over, so I'm going to use what that is in the container. I'm not exactly sure. It's about half of a container, and I'm going to get that in there too. I did rinse my rice. I don't think I've ever done it without rinsing it. But if that's the way you want to do it, that's fine. I've done this with pasta even. So it all depends on what you like, what you feel like that night. It's very, very adapted to whatever your family likes. If you don't like broccoli, if you like cauliflower, whatever veggies you want to put in this, go for it. It can be changed up and varied. You can put beef instead of chicken. You can really change it up to whatever your family likes. So my broccoli is frozen, so that's going to add some liquid to help that rice to cook. And I will stir it up about halfway through. So I broke up my chicken, and I'm just going to place it throughout. I'm not going to be really finicky about it because I'm going to mix this halfway through like I just said, so that will get distributed throughout anyhow. So I'm just putting my chicken on. I'm going to just spread it out here and there. I'm not going to be too particular about it. So I'm going to leave the onions until last. I may or may not put them on. So I'm just going to cover this with foil, put it in a 350-degree oven, and I'm going to bake it until that rice is tender. And it took about an hour and a half to actually cook it and make it the consistency I wanted it. So if you find that it is drying out too much and the rice isn't cooked thoroughly through, you can always add a little bit more liquid in there at halftime, because that's what I did. I did not have enough liquid to begin with. So when I turned it about halfway through, I actually went in and I turned it, just mixed it up, and I added about a cup more liquid to it. And I did add water because I didn't want to open up another broth, but if you have broth, you can always add that as well. And here it is out of the oven, and I decided not to add the onions. So here is tonight's chicken and broccoli casserole. It was really good, and it's definitely something I make a variation of probably a couple of times a month. So I have my bread machine going, and I have my sandwich loaves for the week in here, and I decided to make something sweet, chocolate chip cookies. Now I've tweaked this recipe a little bit from the original recipe that I got from Just Belle's 10. Now I am using a couple of things that she didn't use, and I'm varying the ingredients slightly, so I'm making it my own. So I'm using old semi-sweet chocolate chips. She used something different. I'm using vanilla sugar. She used just regular sugar. I'm using brown sugar that was in the original recipe. I'm using 2 different flours, vanilla pudding, and then my mocha powder, which she didn't use. And so Crisco or shortening, that was from the original recipe. And then I have salt, baking soda, vanilla, and then I'm going to use my frozen eggs. I need to use some of those out of the freezer. And then I have some butter, which also is from out of the freezer, so I have to defrost those. So today I'm using my stand mixer to cream the butter and sugar together. You can also use a hand mixer if you have that. So you want to stop periodically and scrape down your bowl, especially with the KitchenAid. You want to make sure that bottom well, the ingredients down there are mixed in. So in go my eggs one at a time, and I make sure the first one is thoroughly incorporated before I add in my second egg. So now that my second egg is thoroughly incorporated, it's time to start adding my dry ingredients. And this is most of my flour. I did reserve 1 cup for my flour measurements, and I'll show you what I did with that in a moment. And this is my salt, my baking soda, my cappuccino mocha powder, and the vanilla pudding packet. So all those I incorporated together. I thoroughly mixed those together before I added them into my wet ingredients. Fold in or mix in your flour as best as you can, and try not to be like me and get it all over the place. So in goes my flour. So with that cup or so of leftover flour, I'm going to pour in my chocolate chips and pour them all over the counter. But pouring your chocolate chips, I find if I coat them with a little bit of flour, they don't sink to the bottom of the cookie. So I'm just going to add those floured chocolate chips into my dough here. And that's pretty much it. These came together in about 10 minutes. Not including the defrosting of the butter and the eggs. So here is my dough ready to go, and at this point I would chill my dough, but this is not supposed to spread. So I have my cookie sheet here with my Silpat, and I'm using my little smallest scoop. So I'm gonna scoop some dough onto each. I have 2 of these. I'm gonna do one, and I'm gonna put it right in the oven. And then I'm going to do the other one, and I'm going to put it in the fridge for about a half an hour while my bread bakes. And on this one, I'm going to put probably about half the amount of dough, because we don't need all these cookies in my house, and I'm going to freeze them. These freeze really well. So if you want to freeze them, you can bake them off another time so you don't have so many cookies around that you are tempted to eat all at once, like in my household. So I'm stacking these really close together because they're going to be frozen. I'm not going to bake them this way. So here they are. These are the ones I'm going to cover and put in the freezer. These are the ones I'm going to put directly in the oven. And these ones right next to it are chilled. And these have been in the freezer for about 20 minutes, a half an hour or so. So I'm going to get these into the oven. So here is my sandwich loaf out of the oven, looking kind of wonky, but I put it in a warm oven and it proofed faster than I thought, and it actually pushed up against the top. and I proofed it with the top on because it's warmer. But it literally pushed the top off. I had to, it popped one side, which I didn't even know it could do. I was just going to bake it with the top on and make a flat top loaf, but it had other ideas and it literally pushed it off. So I baked it without the top, and that's what you see, this crease on the side and that little thing in the back there. So it's still delicious though. It is really good. We have made sandwiches out of it and it's perfectly fine, which I'm surprised because I'm pretty sure I overproofed this. So here they are out of the oven, 350, about 10 minutes. My oven runs hot, so I did 8. As you can see, they're a little bit brown on the sides, so 8 minutes was perfect for me. And they look about the same. The ones that were in the freezer are these ones, and the ones I put directly in are the other ones, and they look like they didn't spread either way. So this was definitely a plus. But what I did notice, if you can see there, it looks like the very center is not quite cooked. But I think if I leave them on the pan for to cool, they might cook all the way through. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna put them back in the oven, and I'll let you know. So here they are. They are cooled. They are really good. That center that looked like it wasn't quite cooked, I did leave them to cool on the cookie sheet, and the warmth from that did cook them all the way through. I checked them before I put them on the cooling rack, and they were cooked all the way through. One thing I will do differently next time I do this, I will brown my butter. Now, I've done that in the past with my other recipes, and I think it adds to the flavor of the cookie. And this is definitely one I will do again because it uses up the Crisco that I have in my fridge. So for tonight's dinner, I'm going to do a really quick pasta dish, mangani as we call it in our house. It's basically just some kind of meat, pasta sauce, and it's done. I'm going to serve it with a veg on the side. I have some pasta left in here. I'm going to use this up. I'm going to open up another box. I don't even know, save March of last year, but it's still good. I have oodles and noodles, like I said, of tomato products. So I have a can of diced tomatoes, and it has basil, garlic, and oregano already in it, so that adds to the flavor. Pulled out a jar of pasta sauce. I have my home canned sausages here. These are hot, so I'm trying to taper that down a little bit. So I'm going to put a little bit of celery in it. Actually, this is Swiss chard, but I call it celery. And some mushrooms. And that's going to be dinner tonight with a side of veg. So I just rummaged a bit more through my fridge, and I found these tomatoes here from, I don't even know what they were from this week. Probably those enchiladas. That's probably where they came from. So I'm going to use those up. I have the liquid off of my veg and off of some chicken, which I'm going to put in there anyway because, yeah, it's protein. They won't know the difference. So I'm going to use this. Probably won't use it all because I just drained these two into here. It was about that full. So probably won't use it all, but I will in the coming week. So, excuse me. So I'm going to use these in my dish tonight. So it has been said that you really shouldn't put your salt in until your water is boiling because it could pit your pot. I have always tried to remember that, not that I've ever had a problem with my pots being pitted, but I try to remember to put my salt in after my water has boiled. So in goes my pasta, and I'm not going to talk through all of this. I'm just going to show you what I'm doing, and it's pretty self-explanatory. I've made this before. It's one of the family's favorites, so I'm just going to go with it. And remember the spoon trick. If you put it over your pot, it won't boil over. But this pot is low enough. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't boil over even without the spoon. So I've already put in my seasonings. That's why it looks pretty dark. But I did let it go a little bit too far, but that's okay. It just adds to the flavor. So once I have all my ingredients in, I let it slow simmer for about 10-15 minutes, and then I add my secret ingredient. Don't tell anybody, but I add a little bit of sugar just to cut that acid from the tomatoes. And sometimes I add this last ingredient and sometimes I don't, but today I did. I add probably about a teaspoon to the sauce. And that is it. I'm just adding the two together, and of course it wouldn't be cooking or baking with me if I didn't make a mess. And I immediately pick up that pasta because that stove is hot and I don't want it sticking and burning and causing a bigger mess. So I just pick it up and throw it away. And yeah, add my pasta sauce to this and stir it in together and it's done. So at the end, I did add a little bit of basil just for flavoring. And I'm adding the meat last because that's already cooked and I just want to warm it through. So that should tell you how cold my cold room is, because this was literally stuck in the jar because of the gelatinized liquid in it and the coolness of my cold room downstairs. So tonight I'm using home canned sausage. I usually use ground beef, which I have none of in the house. I've done it with pork, ground turkey. In a pinch, you could probably even do it like corned beef even. Never tried that way, but maybe you could do it that way. You can do it with anything you have on hand. And this is our dinner tonight, and I served it with a side of peas and carrots. So it's the next day, and I keep this bag in the freezer. I just put cookies in it every time I freeze cookies, and yeah, usually I have some parchment paper in here, but I guess I took the parchment paper out. But I keep it in the freezer. I'm taking my my cookies out that I froze, that I baked off yesterday, and I froze them. So yeah, put some plastic on them. Didn't hold very well, but that's okay. And all I'm gonna do is sometimes I use parchment, sometimes I use wax. Today I'm using wax paper. I find that they don't stick together if I do it this way. They don't stick together and they're easier to section off. So all I'm going to do is just transfer these in here. Just stack them in here. And then I'm going to slip them into my cookie bag. And these will go back in the freezer and we'll bake them off in the next couple of weeks. I'm not sure how long they last in the freezer because they don't really last that long in my house. And these ones I'm actually going to defrost and bake them off today because this is all that I have left from 2 days ago, and it was 2 dozen. 2 cookies are left. So I'm going to bake these rest probably about another 2 dozen. So I'm also going around and restocking my kitchen pantry from my short-term pantry. And today it's rolled oats. I was completely out in my kitchen working pantry, so I pulled them from my short-term storage, which after this I'm going to have to go into Mylar bags. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and click that notification bell to be notified when I upload videos. God bless, and remember, stay safe and keep prepping.